I'm going to talk a little bit about the internet and how that has changed things. So this isn't the first set of peaceful protests in Myanmar. And it is worth mentioning that as of right now, which is March 15th, the protests have been peaceful. It's not like the protesters have guns and they're shooting at the military. That isn't happening. These are unarmed protesters. So the internet playing a role here. Now, if we look back to times like in 1988, in particular 2007 with the Saffron Revolution, the country was really closed down. People didn't have smartphones. There was no infrastructure for that kind of stuff. And so getting information from place to place um, was a big challenge for other people to know, for people outside of Myanmar to know. It was a massive challenge. Um, so this time, with the internet being a thing, instant communication, um, that has really been a game changer to get more people involved, to make sure that people have access to good information, and information about what is on the ground. It's helped organize people or allow people to be organized, and allowed people who are like either in exile or in the case for the kind of like the shadow government that has been created from the elected officials um, from this past election. So there's been the CPRH, either one. Uh, uh, these guys have been meeting in exile or just in safety using the internet. Um, so this stuff wasn't possible before. It's been a real game changer for this, and really about keeping everybody in the know, particularly about the atrocities that are going on. And this has been a challenge. This has been a benefit for the protesters, and on the other end, for the military, because of the propaganda that they're looking to send out, they've they found that their Facebook pages, their Instagram pages, their YouTube accounts, their TikTok accounts, these sorts of ways of reaching people have by and large been shut down. So the military doesn't have that same access to the public with their propaganda in the same way that the protesters are able to use this stuff. So the internet has proven to be a big part of this. And now we have this young generation, the Gen Z, who are on the front lines. These are kids who are, kids who are in their late teens, early 20s on the front line doing the organizing, having grown up in the changing Myanmar of the last decade, and their parents having grown up under the military regime, and they do not want to go back to anything like that. And so when you hear these younger people, they're just like, hey, like we're fighting for our lives. Now this isn't so much different than the protests of the past. They've all said that too, but there does seem to be a different sort of fire because people have had a taste for a voice, having access to the outside world and things like that. And the internet is a massive, massive part of that. Um, Now, about a week and a half or so into the the protests after the military coup, the military started cutting off internet access. And in the early days, they cut off for 18, 24 hours, something like that. And then until recently here, they've been cutting it every night for 8 to 12 hours, just like internet just gets cut off. Um, Now, as of last night, so this is March 15th, but as of yesterday, um, it appears as though internet from mobile phones, so mobile, if you have your different your cell phone internet, stuff like that, and that's the way that the vast majority of people in Myanmar, I don't know what the exact percentage is, but I would say like 95 to 98% of people access it, with their mobile plan, with a mobile phone. People don't just have Wi-Fi at home. The vast majority of people would not have Wi-Fi at home, for example. Um, so that has been cut. And there's talk about when that will be going back on, if at all. I mean, this is a way for the military really to just like cut that cord. And now all of a sudden people can't communicate. They can't find out what's going on. They can't, um, organize in the same sorts of ways. So this is a really, really, really big deal that this has happened, and it makes me very afraid um, for all of our friends in Myanmar. Now, one last little bit has to do with the mobile companies. So the mobile companies, there's a few of them. MPT, which is, I believe, government owned. We've got Ooredoo, which is a Qatari-based company, if I recall, and the Telenor, which is a company that's Norwegian owned. Now, all of the companies, even though they don't want to, shortly after the coup, they had to install some equipment where they were essentially like saving all of this tracking information of people that use their services for years. And these laws that have been put into place are pretty darn draconian. In fact, doing essentially anything on the internet now could be against the law in some sort of way. This is something that's used by authoritarian regimes all the time. You essentially make the laws so vague that like you can just you can for any random person, if they are the person that you want to get, then you can get them based on this stuff. Oh, you posted on Facebook that you don't like the military or something. Oh, 5 years in prison. So this is a big. Very, very one last little bit is that there's one other company. It's called Mitel. This is a relatively new company in the last couple of years, and this is actually military owned. Lang is one of the like major shareholders.